Wala na yung anak tama, mami. Wala na. Anak siya.
Magtutuloy pa pa! Anak! Anak ko!
Namaga po yung puso niya. Wala man po 24 hours, 15 hours lang po kinuha po sa amin yung anak ko. Lahat po ng medicine binigay sa kanya, wala pong tumalab. Wala pong tumalab na medicine sa kanya. Ganun po kademonyo yung COVID.
Heartbreaking scenes after a mother lost her one-year-old child due to heart failure. Her mother believes her son was infected with COVID-19. Whether or not that can be confirmed, their tale comes as the country tallied a 59% rise in COVID infections across all age groups, including minors. The government is now looking at the possibility of vaccinating children, which could happen as early as September. Good evening, I'm Robbie Alampay. You're watching The Big Story. Let's start with severe COVID-19 infections among minors and the emergence of Delta variant fueling the call to extend vaccine coverage to include children. Mobile journalist Julie Baiza with a big story.
Wala na yung anak tama, mami. Wala na. Anak siya.
Magtutuloy pa pa!
These were the cries of a grieving Filipino mother based in Dubai. In a Facebook post, Roxy said test results on her one-year-old son, Luther, came back normal until doctors examined his heart. It was already inflamed, believed to be a complication among COVID patients. In less than 24 hours, Junior died.
Namaga po yung puso niya. Wala man po 24 hours, 15 hours lang po kinuha po sa amin yung anak ko. Lahat po ng medicine binigay sa kanya, wala pong tumalab. Wala pong tumalab na medicine sa kanya. Ganun po kademonyo yung COVID.
Doctors are still studying whether Luther's heart failure was directly caused by COVID-19. It is believed that children have strong resistance against the virus. But experts warn this does not mean that they could not get infected. Heart disease, hypertension, and diabetes are among illnesses considered comorbidities or those that could worsen COVID-19 infection. Senior citizens are most vulnerable, but it seems that the Delta variant does not pick age and can also affect children.
We propose really to the NITAC that we have to include children as soon as possible. They will be also vulnerable, particularly those children with comorbidities.
The government targets to start vaccination of minors by September, pending the vaccine experts panel's go signal. Inoculations will start with minors aged 12 to 17, like how it was done in other countries. But for now, only the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine has been approved for use on children. Sinovac is currently applying for an EUA for vaccinations of 3 to 17-year-olds. Should this move push through, the government may have to recalibrate its vaccine program to assure adequate supply.
Meron kaming nine-negotiate na more or less 26 million doses intended for our pediatrics vaccination.
While child vaccinations have yet to be approved, parents and guardians are advised to be more careful to avoid infections among minors. Julie Baiza, We Are One News.
To talk more about COVID-19 and children and the proposal to have them vaccinated, we have on the line Dr. Benjamin Ko, Chief of the Pediatric Infectious Disease Section of UST Hospital. Dr. Ko, welcome to The Big Story.
Hello, good evening, Robbie. Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat.
Magandang gabi po. Even as we stress that in the case of that child that we showed, we are still waiting for confirmation whether or not that is COVID. Of course, anxiety is rising. There's more people asking kung pwede na bang magbakuna ng mga bata. Where do we stand right now? What do we understand or don't understand at this point with regards to the efficacy and safety of vaccines with minors?
Well, the data currently shows that the vaccine efficacy among minors is actually much better than in adults and in the older population. That's because the children have actually better immune responses compared to adults and those that are immunocompromised and the elderly. So I think the vaccine will work. No, there is no doubt about it. The question is, do we have enough supply for the population? Because I've always said time and again, every interview, that children won't get it if adults don't get COVID. So the transmission currently in the Philippines, which we normally see, is from a household. So you must have a household contact. The index case is usually an adult, and the adult can either be your elderly population, grandparents who usually go out, a lot of people who are unvaccinated, or parents who go out and work, and in spite of being vaccinated, may still get infected. So that predisposes their children to get infected with COVID-19.
Okay. So in the meantime, with more and more people getting vaccines, are there things that they should be mindful of, especially if they still have children and minors at home?
Yes, I think we should remember that even if we are vaccinated, there is no vaccine that is 100% effective. So with that in mind, we should still be careful, and the government and the health agency constantly reminds na talagang we need to practice apat dapat. No? We keep a distance, we try to avoid crowds, we stay in ventilated places, we keep washing our hands, and we wear a mask. These are very important things that we need to remember. Lalo na sa pag-uwi natin sa bahay, yung mga anak natin, yan ang nakakasalimuhan natin. So they're the ones that we encounter first when we come home. And we should be very mindful, particularly the mere fact that you are vaccinated does not provide us the right or the privilege to enjoy everything else as if everything else was back to normal. We need to make sure that we are careful because there is a variant out there that is highly transmissible, fitter and faster than the original variant of
Okay, salamat po, Dr. Ko. That was Benjamin Ko of the UST Hospital. Now, just to reiterate, no one, no matter what the age group, is completely safe from COVID-19. Tonight's big number, in fact, is 59%. This is the 2-week rise in COVID-19 cases across all age groups. The highest number of cases remain among the working adult population, ages 30 to 39. The Philippines has been upgraded to high-risk status with more infections being recorded. This is a reminder for everyone to get vaccinated, but please do not flock vaccine centers. Wait for your schedule. And these are the other big stories tonight. 4 days into the third round of ECQ in Metro Manila, mayors have finally committed to handing out cash aid by Wednesday. They have 15 days to finish distributing the 10.9 billion peso dole-out. Senator Panfilo Lacson's unification formula for 2022 did not sit well with Vice President Lenny Robredo. The Vice President rejected the proposal for any of the bets to withdraw to favor the candidate faring better in survey polls. And the last batch of our athletes have finally made their way back to the Philippines, and they're coming home with more incentives and an Order of Lapu-Lapu honor to boot. These big stories after the break. Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay. As Cebu City deals with rising COVID-19 cases, the LGU is also facing profiteering from some cemetery workers hoping to make cash this pandemic. Jem Abanseña's report exposes how COVID-linked deaths are being used to make money.
Illegally exhuming corpse has become a business for some in Cebu City. Maricel Pacanya is furious to find her mother's body gone and replaced with another corpse. The gravestone has also been replaced. The same thing happened to her grandmother's tomb. Maricel says they have a 5-year contract with the cemetery for the tomb of her mother who died in 2018.
Ang kontrata is 5 years pa bago i-exhume. Sakali ma-exhume nila, dapat ipapaalam sa mga kaanak. Hindi nila kami sinabihan. Nashock na lang kami.
One grave digger told us that some co-workers illegally exhumed bodies so they could sell the tombs to others. Skeletons were also dumped in various corners of the cemetery.
Binubuksan nila. Pag may nagpunta rito magpapalibing, libing agad. Di kasi pwedeng iborol basta COVID-19 patient, PUI at PUM. Binebenta nila yung nicho, yung mga kalansay. Isinisilid sa sako tapos ilalagay lang dyan sa gilid.
The LGU has temporarily closed down the cemetery pending investigation.
Yung health authorities naman natin, pinapa-imbestiga natin, anyway, meron pa naman ibang mga lugar, so that gawa ng mga palisiya at saka yung mga pulis na tutulong doon to investigate also para maputol yan.
Demand for burial space has since gone up as COVID-19 cases and deaths rise. In Cebu, death toll has reached almost 2,500, 40% of which are from Cebu City. Funeral parlors, especially those with crematoriums, are now overwhelmed.
Kahit nga sa sasakyan namin po, ano talaga kami? Pati sa mga ilaw. Talagang ano kami, yung full operation kami. So alert din kami sa mga ganun. Grabe talaga, ma'am.
Cebu City Emergency Operations Chief Implementer Joel Garganera says the situation is getting worse with more people getting infected. They are now planning to put up a mass grave.
That is something that is also bound to happen. If the mortality that we're experiencing on a daily basis.
As of Sunday, COVID-19 cases in Cebu City have reached 31,930, 3,640 of which are active infections. For News 5, Jem Avancenia, we are One News.
The DOH says Delta variant cases have now been recorded in 13 of 17 regions in the Philippines. These include Ilocos Region, Cagayan Valley, Central Luzon, Bicol, as well as Central, Eastern, and Western Visayas, Zamboanga Peninsula, and Northern Mindanao. Delta variant cases were also recorded in the Davao Region, Calabarzon, and Metro Manila, which account for almost 150 of 355 confirmed local cases. In Region 6, Iloilo City's hospital beds are already at high-risk capacity. ICU utilization rate has climbed to 84%, while healthcare utilization has climbed to more than 70%. Mayor Jerry Treñas is requesting for more personnel and equipment from the DOH as their hospitals are being overwhelmed by patients from nearby provinces. Region 6 has so far recorded 36 Delta variant cases. In northern Mindanao, Cagayan de Oro's healthcare utilization rate has also reached critical risk capacity. 70% of ICU beds in 11 hospitals are now occupied. Mayor Oscar Moreno said most COVID-19 patients in northern Mindanao were brought to their hospitals. 22 Delta variant cases have been reported in Region 10. Meanwhile, households in Metro Manila will get another round of cash aid this ECQ, but some residents may get nothing as certain cities receive a smaller budget for the dole-outs. Maricel Halili with the story.
Finally, on Wednesday, Metro Manila residents will receive cash aid 6 days since enhanced community quarantine was reimposed. The Social Welfare Development has already downloaded to local government units the funds worth 10.9 billion pesos. About 10.7 million residents are expected to receive 1,000 pesos each, or up to 4,000 pesos per family. LGUs have 15 days to fulfill the dole-outs, but doubted that a given period is enough.
Alam naman po namin, Secretary, ang hirap ng pamimigay sa panahon ng Delta variant surge. Nagsabi na po ang mga LGUs na kung sakasakaling hindi nila matatapos within the 15 days, kung pwede daw po silang mag-request ng extension.
The same beneficiaries from last April's master list are entitled to the cash aid. LGUs are devising ways to ensure that the distribution won't become super spreader events. Makati will distribute the money via GCash. Quezon City will hold dole-outs through a per-barangay basis.
And each batch is geographically identified para hindi po sabay-sabay ang pagpunta sa site.
Navotas will likewise do it in batches.
Alphabetical, may schedule po per hour kung sino po yung mga darating po doon. No?
Aside from efficient distribution, another major concern is the city's respective budgets. Pasig, for instance, has only received 650,000 pesos from the 680,000 peso budget it had before. About 30,000 Pasigueños are at risk of getting nothing.
Meron kaming targeted sectors. Halimbawa po yung solo parents, etc. So sa ngayon, ang mangyayari niyan, yung targeted sectors.
The national government is asking for everybody's patience.
Wala naman pong delay. Kaya lang po, napakabilis po ng pangyayari dahil itong Delta variant, kinakailangan mabilis din ang aksyon natin. No? Nagkaroon na nga po tayo ng isang linggong allowance, no? Para ma-organize at maayos yung funding source natin. Sa tingin ko naman po, there has not been any extraordinary delay.
The palace also promised other ECQ areas, particularly Laguna and Bataan, of financial assistance. For News 5, Maricel Halili, We Are One News.
For the big story in sports, like fellow Filipino Olympic boxers, Carlo Paalam is set to receive incentives after his silver medal finish in the Olympics. Paalam is set to take home at least 24 million pesos in incentives. 5 million pesos will come from the Philippine Sports Foundation as mandated by law. The MVP Sports Foundation and San Miguel Corporation will each give 5 million pesos. Phoenix Petroleum, meanwhile, will give Paalam 3 million pesos. House Deputy Speaker Mikey Romero, the Philippine Olympic Committee, and the Office of the President are also giving out a 2 million peso reward for silver medalists. Paalam will also receive 60,000 miles for life from Philippine Airlines. AirAsia has rewarded Paalam with unlimited flights for 5 years. Cebu Pacific, meanwhile, is giving 25 free flights for the silver medalist. Adding to the pot is a house and lot in Cagayan de Oro from Cebu Landmasters. Paalam will also receive a house and lot in Tagaytay from POC President Bambol Tolentino and a free big bike from Motor Trade Philippines. Time for another quick break. When we return, Vice President Leni Robredo has rejected Senator Panfilo Lacson's unification plan. The proposal involves the two filing their candidacies, but for one to back out eventually later on. And the Philippine boxing team has finally set foot once again in the Philippines. They're coming home with more prize money. The details after the break. Good evening, I'm Robbie Alampay. You're still watching The Big Story. Miralco is set to raise power rates for the 5th straight month. Consumers are appealing for assistance as they are affected once again by lockdowns. Shaila Francisco has the story.
With many Metro Manila residents stuck at home during enhanced community quarantine, some can't help but worry about their electricity bill. Such is the case for Evelyn of Makati City. During lockdown, she noticed that power consumption doubles, a big worry, especially with the limited work her husband is getting during ECQ.
Hindi pa nga kami masyado nakakabayad nung nakaraan, may kulang pa kami. Ngayon, madadagdagan na naman. Bes na magagamit mo na sa ibang bagay yung idadagdag na pambayad sa kuryente.
Miralco has announced an increase of 9.65 centavos in the August bill due to a higher transmission charge. This is equivalent to a 19 to 48 peso increase for those consuming 200 to 500 kilowatts per hour. This is the 5th straight month that Miralco has implemented a power rate hike. They are unsure if price will be jacked up again in the next months. It will depend on outages, fuel prices, and exchange rate. But another hike might be in the offing by October when the Malampaya gas facility shut down for preventive maintenance. Because of this, the firm says some plants will have to use liquid fuel instead.
Historically, actually, liquid fuel price has been higher than Malampaya natural gas price. So typically, doon nang gagaling yung impact sa generation cost.
But with colder weather, consumption might still be lower compared to summer months.
Ngayong pumasok na yung bagyuhan at in 3 weeks time, nasa bare months na tayo. Usually yung ating konsumo ay bumababa kapag mas malamig yung panahon kumpara nung summer months.
Miralco assured that there will be no disconnection activities in areas placed under stricter quarantine restrictions like ECQ and MECQ. They're also ready to provide other assistance.
As we have said in the past, and we reiterated that we will take it on a case-to-case basis. We can provide any assistance necessary or needed to ensure that it will not be disconnected.
Shaila Francisco, WR1 News.
Vice President Leni Robredo explained her decision to reject the unification plan presented by Senator Ping Lacson. In her weekly radio show on Sunday, the Vice President said Lacson's proposal was to have candidates file their respective candidacies and then agree to withdraw soon after to support the strongest contender. Robredo says it would be unfair to lead supporters on, but still she is willing to seek common ground with other potential candidates for a unified slate.
Simple yung dahilan ko sa pagtutol doon sa proposal. And pag nag-file ako, kailangan ko ituloy ang laban. Pag nag-file ako, hindi ako pwedeng umatras kahit gaano pa kahirap. Kasi predisinta ko na yung sarili ko sa publiko eh.
Senator Lacson said he respects the Vice President's decision and insists their goals are one and the same. And here are other big stories from around the world. Taliban fighters overran 3 provincial capitals in Afghanistan on Sunday, including the strategic northeastern city of Kunduz. This fueled the insurgents' push in 2 nearby capitals, Saripul and Taliban, just a few weeks before U.S. troops' withdrawal in the country is completed. The Taliban has taken dozens of districts and border crossings in recent months. The UN climate panel sounded a dire warning, saying the world is dangerously close to runaway warming and that humans are unequivocally to blame. The panel said greenhouse gas levels are so high that climate disruptions could last decades, if not centuries. It warned that deadly heat waves, powerful hurricanes, and other extremes happening now could likely become more severe. The Philippine boxing contingent is back in the country after its medal-laden campaign in the Tokyo Olympics. Let's get more details on this from Lynn Olivarios. She's reporting live from NAIA Terminal 2. Lynn, how were our Filipino boxers greeted when they arrived?
Robbie, the highly anticipated arrival of the Philippine boxing team was met with cheers and applause as sports and government officials greeted them upon their return this afternoon.
2 silvers and 1 bronze. It was a successful Olympic campaign for Filipino boxers. The boxing team, led by silver medalists Nesty Petesio and Carlo Paalam, bronze medalist Yumir Marshall, and Irish Magno, accounted for 3 of the country's 4 medals. This made the Philippines the best-performing Southeast Asian nation in the Tokyo Games. That's why the athletes received a fitting hero's welcome on their arrival Monday afternoon. The team was welcomed by MVP Sports Foundation President Al Panlilio, Association of Boxing Alliances in the Philippines President Ricky Vargas, and Secretary General Ed Picson. Elated with the victories, Vargas said the coaches will be rewarded as well.
May usapan na yun. In fact, yung government incentive is, I think, half of what they're receiving will go to the coaches. And MBPSF is the same. So 10 million, if it's 10 million, 5 million goes to the coach.
And with the 2024 Paris Olympics now in the works, Panlilio said a collaborative effort with the private sector will be crucial to do an even better outing.
We need to continue to support them. I guess continue to
make them develop and even, again, achieve higher heights for Philippine sports.
At the loading bays, members of the Air Force, Navy, and Coast Guard lined up with tarpaulins bearing warm greetings for their comrades. Shortly after, the boxers headed to the presidential lounge for a virtual call with President Duterte. There, Duterte announced that silver medalists Carlo Paalam and Desti Petesio will receive an additional 2 million pesos. This is on top of their 5 million peso incentive from the government. Bronze medalist Dumir Marshall, meanwhile, will have an additional 1 million pesos, while Irish Magno will receive 200,000 pesos.
You did your best, and the Filipino people appreciate it, especially bringing honor to the country.
Medalists will likewise be awarded with the Order of Lapu-Lapu, recognizing those who have brought honor to the country.
Robbie, the boxers are now on their way to Summit Ridge in Tagaytay for their quarantine, and after that, they will likely go back to their hometowns to celebrate their victories with their families. Robbie?
Thanks, Lynn. That was Lynn Olavario reporting live from NAIA Terminal 2. Tokyo has taken its curtain call after staging an unprecedented Olympics in the time of COVID-19. Like its opening ceremony, the fast-paced closing event was held before an audience of mostly empty seats. It celebrated the past 2 weeks that had transpired. Performers in traditional dresses also gave a glimpse of Japanese culture. Electronically generated golden rings formed the Olympics logo, while Tokyo's cauldron flared up for the last time, before extinguishing and slowly shutting close. Tokyo then passed the baton to Paris for the 2024 Games. In the French capital, crowds at the Eiffel Tower celebrated the handover. Fighter jets flew and trailed blue, white, and red smoke, the national flag's colors. And that wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250. Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. On behalf of Gretchen Ho, ako po si Robbie Alampay. We are One News. Good evening.